Our next speaker is Mr. Jonathan Bennett. He's the Executive Vice President, Digital Commerce and Customer Analytics for the Hartford. In this role, he directs all digital strategy and execution for the enterprise, and he's accountable for developing customer insights that drive the Hartford's business direction and growth. Most recently, Bennett was the Executive Vice President of Personal and Small Business Insurance for the Hartford. He joined the Hartford in April of 1999 as Staff Assistant to the Chairman and CEO. He serves on the board of the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, and he's here today to bring us yet another perspective on aging drivers.
Thank you, Kathleen, and thanks to all of you. My pleasure to be here with you this afternoon to share a few thoughts on what clearly has already been established by my predecessors here as a very significant and important issue for all of us. I am, though, as I listened to Joe, reminded of a classmate of mine from high school. And we went through the driver's ed program back in those days together. And when we got to the end of the class and we were all prepared after so much in-class and on-road driving training to finish up and head out for our exams with the Department of Motor Vehicles, our instructor asked us one last question, which was, are there any other questions before you head off and we conclude our class? And one young woman raised her hand and said, yes, I'm interested in what that word prindle means on the top of the column to the steering wheel. And we were all frankly stunned at how she was able to get through the class, not understanding what park, reverse, drive, and low meant to the automobile. And of course, she had figured out, based on the number of clicks down on the shift lever, how to put the car in gear and to maneuver it around. And so it does point out that all of us have our technology challenges, and all of us have a need to learn and adapt. And it does raise the question about how effective we can all be under those circumstances. Let me just start, because you may be wondering, certainly the insurance industry has a great deal of interest in safety on the road. But in terms of future technologies and where we head, where do our interests lie? And there are a number of important places that I want to draw some of your attention to. But first, for we at the Hartford, we've had nearly a 27-year relationship as the exclusive provider of auto and home insurance to members of AARP. And it's really through that relationship that we've grown quite close to the issues affecting drivers and aging. It's allowed us to develop an advanced 50 team, which is one of the few teams of corporate gerontologists engaged in understanding auto safety issues in older drivers, and allowed us to develop partnerships with organizations like Joe Coughlin's at MIT. And for decades, we have certainly been aligned with the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, trying to understand the phenomenon of safety on our roadways. And we all share a real, very deep and meaningful commitment to improving the lives of our fellow Americans and ensuring their safety on our highways. And auto insurance does find itself very much now at the intersection of safety and longevity. We've heard quite a bit about the statistics that affect our demographic population and how we see older drivers coming through as representing a more significant and larger share of those who are on the road. It's important to understand that there are some, behind the data, some interesting observations around what we do see among those accident rates for older drivers in particular. And while it was mentioned right up front that clearly we see very positive trends with older drivers, they do self-regulate and as a result control the number of miles they drive, where they drive, when they drive. They exercise a very responsible outlook and strong judgment, which does allow them to therefore enjoy much lower frequency of crash rates, and in turn, from the standpoint of the insurance industry, typically lower premiums. But importantly, as I was mentioning with the types of crash rates, they tend to be ones that involve property damage. They tend to involve intersections or particular types of circumstances around merging traffic, different from what you see in other age demographics. A lot of this reflects certainly the environment in which they live, and the circumstances under which they drive, which might be shorter distances, less frequently on the highway, so to speak, in terms of the percentage of their miles driven. And I think importantly, it does reflect a lot about the habits of the retiree and the lifestyle that they choose to live. And so as we look at driving for older Americans, we break it down into three categories. There's the operator, about which we talk a great deal. There's the vehicle, also, which gets a lot of attention. And then there's the environment. And I want to touch just quickly on each of those three with just a few comments. And we'll start with the environment. How we build roadways matters a great deal. There certainly is a lot to be said for the clarity of road signs, the ways in which people are able to see traffic lights. All of those technologies are very significant to the success of a driver of any age. But in terms of road layout and road design, there's a lot to be learned and understood about how we can create environments which handle the congestion and in many cases the suburban sprawl that we experience. And as was earlier pointed out, many of our older Americans do not live in urban settings, but they live in suburbia, where we have seen a growing congestion as shopping centers and residential areas begin to merge a bit together. And you see many multi-lane roads, oftentimes with unrestricted access to the right and without turn lanes to the left. And in fact, we've also often seen in our trade that many of the accidents that are the most severe occur among those left-handed turns and undivided highways without lights, without warning signals. And it's often not about the first lane that needs to be crossed. Stopping at that intersection, looking to make that left-hand turn, the first lane is often quite clear. It's the second or third lane over with oncoming traffic, which is not observed as clearly, not seen as they enter the intersection, that often will pose the problem. Then we come to the vehicle. And much of what we talk about does involve vehicle safety. And I think it's exciting to know that structurally vehicles have come a very, very long way. The safety of the modern vehicle today is well beyond what it was 50 years ago. Even as we would say those big, heavy cars of yesteryear were like a tank, the reality is for the occupant inside, they clearly were not. They did not have this kind of safety advances that we see today, and we should all feel much safer on the road behind the wheel of the vehicles that we all occupy today. But there is this growing phenomenon of how can we improve everyone's awareness now while they are behind the wheel operating in these circumstances. And so much has been talked about here already this afternoon about the cognitive abilities and the needs of drivers to process increasing amounts of information to help them better navigate and to control their vehicle. We see a lot of opportunity for increased research and study to continue to take advantage of these tools and capabilities and to help drivers to remain independent deeper and deeper into their life, which is, in fact, the most critical aspect of what driving represents, certainly to our customer base and to older Americans everywhere. We're also encouraged by the ongoing safety features. We do believe that they represent substantial improvements and not just to crashes, but also to occupant safety. You saw a little bit about airbags deployed in safety belts, things that help to deal with the fragility of the occupants, all of which speak to improved recovery time in the event that there is an accident, and other ways in which we can ensure the safety of all occupants, both in the front and in the rear of the cabin, which is also an extremely important area of vehicle safety. When we talk about the operator, there's a tremendous amount that's not known to us. And I think that this is the place in which we see an opportunity to shift research efforts and to really begin to understand how do we manage and build for the future an intersection here of a better operator and a better vehicle. We have seen much to be discussed now in terms of human factors. And as we think about the research of the future, certainly it ranges from eyesight and hearing, being able to be aware of your physical surroundings, to have inputs and understand what is going on surrounding the vehicle. There's range of motion issues, and the opportunity for occupational therapy to improve your ability to operate as needed, to turn your head, to understand what's happening to the left and to the right. And while backup cameras and warning lights and indicators in the rearview mirrors all represent substantial opportunities to make these drivers more aware, we still need to continue to focus on improvements to their physical condition as well. And then what's going to be, I think, hugely important is how do we take these issues of healthy living forward? Chairman Hirschman mentioned that this is really about the rising tide of safety. And I think that we can all agree that that is the big opportunity, whether it's the exuberance of youth and the immaturity of those 17 and 18-year-olds, or whether it is the memory loss or the physical limitations of an older driver, the opportunity to improve safety on the roads exists for all drivers. Physics plays no favorites, and as a result, you can count on saving lives and reducing injuries by improving safety across all ranges and all age groups. But in order for us to do this, we must really bring a strong focus and a strong commitment to fitness at all levels. It is physical fitness, it is mental fitness and acuity, and it is the ability to understand and operate effectively, whether you're a pedestrian or whether you are behind the wheel of a vehicle. All of us have a role to play in safety. And I think that would bring us to the final point for my comments, which really have to do with other modes of transportation. Because we all know that there are points in our development, in our aging process, where we may in fact find that being behind the wheel is no longer safe for ourselves or safe for others. And yet, this issue of independence looms large. It is the thing that is most on the minds we find among our customers as they get older, which is to not lose my independence, to not be pulled away from the things that keep me active and vibrant. And so what are the ways in which we can bring about alternative modes of transportation, help people to find ways to get around, to be about, and to be engaged with a healthy and active life well beyond the years in which they're able to be healthy and active behind the wheel? There'll be tools, there'll be techniques, there'll be communities that help to bring these ideas forward. These are all opportunities for us to provide encouragement, provide guidance, to provide support and counsel, and to provide research dollars to understand how we might build these kinds of livable communities. Within the insurance trade, we'll be very active, no doubt, in understanding these new forms of technology and these new capabilities. Telematics today is one of the most popular and often discussed topics within our trade, where we are collecting data to better understand the nature of risk, to price for it more accurately, and in turn to create services and benefits for customers beyond the ability to receive that all-important claim handling, which no doubt defines our value proposition. But how great would it be for we as customer-focused enterprises to be able to provide something beyond the claim and beyond a contact to pay your bill, but an opportunity to receive value-added benefits from the data and the intersection of this technology in the automobile. We will be looking for ways to differentiate and to take advantage of many of the tools and capabilities that are being described here at this conference. Look forward to your exciting developments, and thank you very much for your attention this afternoon.